And so what I like to do is not only like I'm not trying to just teach this console. I want to give you a good foundation for audio in general and learn this particular console while we walk through it. So the what usually ends up being the most effective is I like to just basically walk through all the functions that we can do to a single channel. It's like if you think of an old analog console, you know, at the top you have the gain, all the other things that you can do to that channel just kind of on your way down. And so I like to do essentially that and just kind of take one channel and say, what are all the things we can do to manipulate how a particular channel sounds, just to learn all the resources that we have available to us, learn all the tools in the toolbox. And once we've learned those, then once we can actually start getting some musicians, like getting Mitch up there to play some things, stuff like that, we can actually listen and hear and apply those to some real world situations with actual instruments. But for starters, we're just going to kind of walk through all the tools in the toolbox, make sure you know what they are, and then we'll start trying to use them to build something, okay? All right, so kind of overall navigation on the console, one of the most important things to figure out first is this little area that says fader bank right here. So you'll see that there's 4 buttons there, and so there's, and then there's a big light on the left that's lit up right now that says A, and then down here there's one that's not lit up that says B. So in terms of just navigating physically where I am and what channels I'm looking at, A is kind of the simple mode of being able to see through these 4 layers, A, B, C, and D here. I can see I shouldn't say A, B, C, D, but like they're labeled on the top, 1 through 32, 33 through 64, blah, 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 blah. Through those 4 buttons, those 4 layers, I can see every channel, mix, matrix, whatever on this console. So there's no way to get lost between if there's a channel making noise, it's going to be in one of these 4 places, okay? So every channel is represented once and not repeated within that group, within A.
Question?
Yeah.
I noticed words under each of those 4 buttons.
Yep. I'm getting there, don't you worry. So that's the next step. Is so that on the top side, that's kind of when I'm in A mode, that's my list of all my channels on the console. So here's literally channels 1 through 32, channels 33 through 64, my stereo inputs and my DCAs, and my mixes and matrices. So those are like, we'll walk through all that means, but like just to know, I can get to any channel or any fader on the console within those 4 buttons, okay? But now you'll see underneath that it says press both keys to switch A to B, and it's pointing at the first one and the last one. So if I push these outside 2 buttons at the same time, you'll see it switches to B. And now when I'm on B, B is 4 totally user customizable layers. I can take any of those building blocks of channels that have represented here and put them on any fader. I could put the same channel on 17 faders if I wanted, and I could just move one channel and they'd all move together. You know, like I can do whatever I want there. I can put any channel anywhere. I can have, so right now, these are input channels, these are some DCAs, some more input channels. We can kind of mix and match and put stuff wherever we want it. So the thing to know there is that while customizable, and that's probably where you want to spend most of your time, and so that's probably, like, I always like to build that really, really well to have the things that I actually need for a service in the most condensed possible view, so I'm not having to flip between fader layers to get to what I need to get to. I've got everything that I need to do a Sunday service right here. And so that's what we try to do, is try to build that. And if I can't fit it all within one, then I try to build 2 of those. Basically have one that's kind of everything I need the fastest access to, and then stuff that I need to get to a little bit less often, I can put on that second layer down. So does that make sense? Those are just 4 totally customizable layers where I can take any of those parts and pieces that are represented within this A section, and I can put them in B and put them on whatever faders I want to put them on to make it easy for me to mix to my heart's content. So far, so good?
Yep.
Okay. So once you know that we can bounce around and build what we want to be. For now, for just the sake of working through kind of all the functions of the channel, I'm going to start just in this 1 through 32 mode, and I'm going to look particularly at this microphone that I have here, so that as we talk through the different functions, you can see and hear what those actually do. Gotta stay hydrated. Okay. So looking at this screen, this is what we call the selected channel view. This is the screen where I can generally see all of those tools in the toolbox that I have for every single channel. There's obviously other things I can see on this screen. I can hit a setup button and I can go to a menu. I can do all kinds of things that'll take me different places. But you'll find that there's kind of 2 views that'll ever default to, depending on where you are and what button you've pressed last. But most commonly, you'll come back to this screen if you either deselect something or one of the nice shortcut views, if you're ever somewhere else looking at another screen and you want to get back to that selected channel view, one thing that's good to know is just any of these knobs right here, If from any other page I click on one of those, it's going to take me back to the selected channel view for whatever channel I currently have selected, which is, again, this channel 30 with mic 6 in it. So I'm just going to click the gain knob, and you can see I'm right back there. So that's for me how I always use, I use those as my easy button to get back to that home screen. I would call it the home screen. It's not really the home screen, but that's how I like to think of it, so, you know. So there we go. I'm looking at that selected channel view, and now I can see all the functions that I have available for this particular channel. So starting in the top left, there's this little button that says, right here, now it says A.gain, so that's analog gain is what that's saying. Analog gain is basically where we're actually controlling. So obviously this is a digital audio console. What we're doing is we're taking analog audio that's on a copper wire, bringing it into the sound system, and then the first thing we do is hit a preamp, which is what that analog gain knob is controlling. That preamp is what we're using to modify the level of that signal. Because the signal from a, particularly like if you're thinking about a wired microphone on the stage, it's passive, doesn't have battery or anything, that microphone sends out an extremely low voltage signal that gets transmitted all the way back to the console, and then we have to amplify that signal up to a level where we can actually mix that to get it to where it's audible. So what we're using is that preamp for is essentially to take that mic level signal up to a line level signal. So that's variable. We can control how much gain we're applying to bring that signal up to that usable level. I like it. Yamaha measures everything in what we call dBFS, decibel full scale. So you'll see that all the meters will be shown with like right now it just says over and then has a little clip indicator, but really we think of that as 0 is the limit. It's like it's in a digital world, so 0 is the absolute loudest the signal can be, and anything below that is shown as a negative value. So when I'm looking at my input gain, I'm going to show you another thing here is I can tap on that and I can tap it again and I get a little pop up here. And so this is one way to view that signal and see what's going on with that channel. So I'm going to talk into this microphone. Hey, 1, 2. So you can see here on this meter, I can see how much signal I've got. And you'll see that if I'm going to close back out of that for a second, I'm just going to grab this knob here. It says gain. So you can see a meter represented here. And then if I actually cue it, you'll see another meter. Oh, whoops, I cleared it. So if I tap on this here, I get a nice big full resolution meter for this channel. And so when I'm looking at that, plus I obviously also have the one that's on the channel strip itself, which is a great little meter. So I can see right now I'm kind of averaging a -18 with some peaks in a -12 occasionally. And if I get really loud, I can probably even clip it. So I got a little bit of an overlight that lit up there. But you see if I turn that gain knob up, oh, I think the headphones are plugged in, making all kinds of fun noises in those. So if I turn that gain knob up, you can see I'm just sitting here clipping all the time. That's bad, it's gonna sound bad. If I drive that to where it's clipping nearly all the time, it's gonna sound horrible. You hear all that? Okay. As we're taking that digital that analog information, converting it to digital doesn't handle things that are beyond the scale of what it's able to measure, what it's able to capture. Where analog circuitry could actually handle stuff that's over voltage, we can't deal with that in digital, so things sound horrible when they clip. So step number 1 with gain is don't clip. That's really that's the moral of the story. What I like to tell people with most signals into a console, I like to look for average kind of in that -18 with flashes into -12. So where it was honestly when I first started was a really good spot. So here, where I'm seeing that -18 light up almost all the time with occasional peaks into the stuff above that, that's a really healthy place to be. I've got plenty of gain. You can see I've got plenty here, but I've still got headroom. So if I get loud, I can get loud, but it's not going to clip. That's a really healthy place to be. What's up?
So we're just trying to minimize distortion as much as
That's
possible.
part of it. We're trying to get that signal up as loud as we can while keeping ourselves away from distortion. So it's that middle ground of getting that signal where I've got plenty of, I want to have plenty of volume so that I'm not having to push my fader to positive 10 to get it loud enough. I want to be using that gain to get up to a nice full signal, but I also want to be with some headroom where I'm not going to be clipping. So it's about finding that perfect middle ground that gets me that signal where I want to be. So even like on this meter, out of the actual numbered segments, -18 is the middle. So that's one, like I said, I want to have that one lit up most of the time for most inputs. You'll find that I always like to talk about with audio, it's a lot of what I like to call rules of thumb. There's a lot of things that I'm going to tell you, and then later I'm going to tell you all the times when I'm going to break those rules when we actually start applying it. It's good to know, like, this is what I'm going to do on most channels, but particularly when it comes to music. But I'm going to tell you, one of the times I'm not going to follow that rule is like a speaker's mic, pastor's mic, those kinds of things. Things like that, I'm actually going to just adjust the gain to where when I put that fader at 0 on the fader here, it's going to be at the right level. So I don't have to think about how loud that signal is and where that needs to fall. I'm going to adjust gain on a signal like that based on how I want to use it, rather than based on how much level I'm getting in, which is going to be, because teaching is going to be so much quieter than worship. That level on that source is going to be much quieter, but that's okay. These are the rules for the majority of things, but don't feel like every source has to hit them. And so my whole thing I like to teach is that it's all these rules of thumb, and here's what I can do is teach you the things that have helped me mix as I've been mixing for the majority of my life. I can teach you all the things that I've learned. Sorry, you're just on the wrong side of my shoulder.
I'm picking it up.
You're good. I can teach you all the things that I've been doing for years that have helped me do this well. But you're going to find things where you're going to do it differently from how I do it, and that's totally fine. I just want to teach you what I've figured out so that you can go take that and apply it as best you can, but know that you can totally go tweak it and go break it and put it back together. Like that's the beauty of it. I want you guys to like feel comfortable to explore and push buttons, and no button on here should be too scary except things in the setup menu. That's about the only one